Hey, it's Chris. Today I'm doing a bit of an experiment. I wanted to see what it was like turning my iPad into something more like the Remarkable 2 tablet, which basically amounts to creating a mode for my iPad where I take away a bunch of its really amazing features on purpose to have more of a digital paper-like experience. Most of the time when we discuss the iPad Pro, we're talking about things we can add to the experience, how we can maximize it and make it better, do things like add accessories or add apps. But as I learned in the last iPad Pro video, where I took away everything on my desk setup except for the iPad Pro, there are times when more is less. And this actually all came about because even though I love the iPad Pro, and I actually do, I use the Remarkable 2 tablet all the time, every single day. So I actually end up using both of these devices, which might seem weird to people because you might look at them and be like, well, isn't one supposed to be an alternative to or replacement for the other? But if you look at the Remarkable 2 as an iPad alternative, you're gonna be completely disappointed. On the other hand, if you look at it like they bill it as digital paper, it makes a ton of sense. I use the Remarkable throughout the day as digital scratch paper. I also use it just when I wanna be really focused. Like in particular, when I wanna spend family time and focus on the people around me and only be able to put something into the digital realm rather than take things out of the digital realm to just be more present. So the premise of this video is sort of experimenting to figure out, number one, what does it take to make the iPad more Remarkable-like? And this isn't an ad for Remarkable or anything like that. And not for 100% of the time, just for specific focus sessions. Living with it for a while, reporting back on the experience, telling you kind of some of the insights that I discovered. So let's talk about the process first. The Remarkable experience is basically a digital place to write with a digital organizational component with folders so you can organize things with a hierarchy. Got a stylus, got an optional keyboard, and very limited internet connectivity, basically just for syncing. It means redoing the home screen and simplifying the dock so that you just have a digital paper sort of experience with minimal apps. So for me, you know I'm gonna use Freeform for my place to write, and then the Files app for my organization. So two simple apps driving this whole experience. With Freeform being an infinite whiteboard, my options are really wide open for how I want to do things, which is a great time to just briefly mention I've got a new course coming out that you can pre-order called Freeform Unleashed, which goes way beyond the basics. So you can get that for 50% off if you pre-order. Comes out in just a little bit over a month. But now here's where things get really interesting, right? Number one, the internet use. Got to restrict it. The way I went about this was creating a paper mode, focus mode. So I went to settings, focus, hit the plus. I named it paper mode. I'm not gonna allow any people, I'm not gonna allow any notifications because paper and the digital equivalent doesn't allow for any of that. And also, importantly, I've set a pure white image as the wallpaper to symbolize a piece of paper. So that does make for a more paper-like experience when you go from the home screen being white, jump into Freeform and that's white too. It all feels like paper. And of course, I can't not mention it here. You've already heard me like saying the words. I do have my paper-like screen protector on here. They actually didn't sponsor this video, but I like paper-like so much I have to mention it here. The Remarkable itself does have a more textured surface versus the really slippery, just glassy surface of the iPad Pro. So I do stick the paper-like on there, and I am gonna mention it here because it's relevant and I like it. But there's one really, really important final step that we have to do to make this more paper-like here, and that is grayscale the screen. Suck all the color right out. I created two shortcuts that are gonna live on my home screen next to my apps, one to turn on, one to turn off this paper mode experience. And just an interesting side note, I know a lot of people who are really into productivity grayscale their phones to make them less appealing, and that actually can produce a pretty big productivity boost. Something about social media is just not the same when all the color is gone. So you can grayscale things by going to settings, accessibility, display and text size, color filters, turn that on and do grayscale. Or if you want to do the shortcut approach, go to shortcuts, tap plus, then choose your color filter, name it, save it, add it to the home screen. You can create two like me if you want to grayscale and then recolorize. So what is it like to use other than weird and unexpected? Well, the answer is it's actually pretty cool. Now, I think that this modified setup isn't for constant use, but it does serve as an excellent mode for specific distraction-free work sessions, definitely. In fact, I feel like this is a really valuable addition to my iPad setup, and it's gonna be part of every iPad setup for me moving forward, because by taking away some of the functionality, I've actually added some utility, and it actually makes this more versatile for me as an option. And what's cool is I feel like it enables a shift in my mindset. So yes, there's reduced distractions, but also I just think differently when this feels like a sheet of paper, because I know there's added friction to any potential diversions. So I'm predicting that a lot of you, if you try this, will value having this as part of your setup as an option, even if you just end up using the grayscale shortcuts. I think that's probably enough for most people to kind of get close to this more digital paper-like experience. But a few other notes here. I think this really promotes clarity of mind and purpose in your digital interactions, and that's a pretty cool thing to unlock. Also, when you force yourself to quote unquote think outside the app ecosystem and engage more deeply with your own thoughts and creative process, that's where that enhanced creativity through constraint really comes into play. And I'll also say having a more clutter-free digital environment does minimize your cognitive load or cognitive overload. Definitely unlocks the option to do deep work. That's one of Cal Newport's concepts. But with this, I feel like you can more easily engage in high concentration tasks. And I'm not sure if you know this, but there's some studies that suggest that writing by hand does actually improve your memory retention. So if you treat this like a piece of paper that you're gonna write on more than type on, at least some of the time, then you can leverage that benefit while maintaining some digital convenience. But maybe the big thing here is that this really helps to facilitate a quote unquote digital detox. This is something I talk about in my productivity course in a lot of depth. But here's a practical way to even periodically detox from the overwhelming barrage of all the digital content always hitting you, just to kind of foster a healthier mental state. And I also notice that there's a ton of room for personalization here. You don't have to use it like I'm using it. I have a lot of people comment on the channel and they say, well, I just do what you do on the Remarkable on the iPad. Of course, this could never actually be like the Remarkable. It can only ever simulate it because number one, it's only gonna be an option to enable this paper mode, right? Because you can always pop back out. You can add back in all the apps and internet access and notifications that you want to anytime that you want to or are tempted to. So there's no hard limits like you get with the Remarkable. And it kind of comes down to willpower. The Remarkable, when you use it, is kind of like willpower for you. But trying this out, one thing that I really noticed is that a lot of apps that I use and I've recommended over the years, not the core apps, things like Mail or Freeform or Messages, but just like extra apps, they're kind of superfluous. A lot of them are just decorative. Now, I'm not saying that they're not nice or can't be useful, but what I'm saying is a lot of the things that you can do in a bunch of the apps in the App Store are things that you could do on a piece of paper, including digital paper, including something like the Remarkable and the iPad version of the Remarkable by hand, just manually. So it turns out that a lot of the things that you think that you need, you probably don't actually need to get done the things that you need to get done. The other thing is noticing once again, and I know I've mentioned this a lot on the channel, that when you limit yourself, you end up being a lot more creative. And some of it also just has to do with dealing with the raw material of the ideas and information that I have that I need to get out there, rather than thinking about how is it presented. Technology often automates things for you, and when you have to go in and do things more manually, then you just think about it in a different way. It's kind of like dominoes. With technology, you just knock over the first domino and everything happens sequentially for you, especially when you add AI into the mix. But when you have to do it manually and you have to knock over every domino yourself, then you think a little bit more about things. You just get more thoughtful and you do just get more creative. It's like when you stop and think about it, what is the internet? What is the App Store? What is social media? You have all this stuff, this information, just at your fingertips, all the information in the world, everything that's being said out there by other people, and just all of these distractions coming at you from all these different outlets. And we just keep that stuff turned on by default most of the time. The floodgates are wide open and we're just okay with that. We never thought twice about it. Just thinking about like social media, when you jump into a social media app, all of a sudden, you're not doing your thing, you're doing whatever the algorithm recommends to you, which is geared towards what? Helping you get more done? Well, no, it's geared towards keeping you hooked into that app so that you get more engagement time as the app maker and you make more money. So in conclusion, I would say I do actually think that this is something that's kind of cool to set up, to have as an option if you're an iPad user. And you don't have to throw away the default iPad experience or the experience that, let's say, comes in the box that is what Apple intends for people to use their iPad for maybe. And what they tout in the marketing and all these great features and the amazing screen and stuff. Yeah, you can have that, but it's cool to have this in the back pocket too. And when it's time to buckle down and really get some stuff done, or maybe if you just want to impose some constraints on your life so that you will excel creatively, which you're not gonna do if you're just sitting there comfortably cruising along doing things the way that you always did, as we learned in the last iPad video, right, with the desk setup, then yeah, I would say this is completely worthwhile, at least trying out. You don't have to be married to it. Now, I know this is the opposite of everything we talked about today, but if you want some great wallpapers, I just uploaded a whole bunch, which you can check out, linked up down below. Don't forget to check out the courses. Of course, the mainstay, the productivity course, if you haven't been in there already, join the 700 plus people who love it. But there's so many people signing up for the new Freeform course, I'm kind of blown away. It's getting me really excited to put the finishing touches on. That comes out in a little over a month. So you can get it for 50% off. Don't miss out. I'll catch you in the next video. Later.